Hey all, Pi here, and we are back in Our Life Beginnings and Always. And last time we had a rather heavy episode, honestly. I even after having some time to process, I'm still kinda, I don't know what to do with it. So we're just gonna move right along to dinner. Hopefully this one's a little bit lighter, but like, I'm loving this visual novel because it's so real, it's so raw, but also it's a lot, man. Anyway, sunlight shone through the windows as you sat in your living room, your home phone pressed to your ear. Cove was on the other end. Ooh. It'd been shaping up to an ordinary day like any other until Cove had called unexpectedly. He sounded unusually nervous greeting you. Oh? You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted. So, I was just, wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight? Oh? The question came out strangely, almost like he'd rehearsed it a few times beforehand. Your eyes widened a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. So we're going. We're going to this dinner. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about this. Yeah, I'll go. It was... huh? Oh. It seemed that Cove still had more to say, and you just interrupted him. Oops. Yikes. I'm sorry, Cove! Cool. Well... He stumbled for a bit, trying to gather his thoughts again. My mom and dad, they really wanted you to be there if your parents don't have a problem with it. They asked me to ask you. Is that really all this is? You took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. If you really wanted to, you could go to Cove's instead. Cove spoke up again, breaking your thought train. His voice was softer than before. Also, I want you to be there too. Ah! I needed this cuteness shot, sorry. Can you come over? I mean, yes. Let's be responsible. I'll have to ask my moms and get back to you. Okay, tell me when you can. He sounded noticeably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for dinner today that serious? He spoke to you for a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details, then hung up. And that was that. For now, anyway. You called Ma right afterward, and she picked up on the third ring. It wasn't a long conversation. When you asked to go to the Holden house for dinner, she was more than happy to give you permission for it. No problems there. Ma wasn't one to complain about you spending time with Cove. I wonder why. Cove got a quick call from you afterwards, so he knew for sure that you would attend the dinner. Then you said your goodbyes and went on with the afternoon. Soon enough, the sun dipped out of the sky and evening came. It was time for you to head to Cove's house. Where is everyone else? That was not explained. After letting Elizabeth... Okay, so Elizabeth's there. After letting Elizabeth know you were leaving, she didn't look away from the TV, just grunted. Standard. You made the small journey across the street. You knocked a couple times on the heavy door to their condo. As you waited for an answer, you found yourself contemplating being a guest while both of Cove's parents were there. I feel like in this situation, I would be a little bit nervous. So, like, if the... Well, actually... I have sat down to dinner with just the wife and her parents. And her sister. They invited me to Christmas, actually. Anyway, first dinner with the in-laws is kind of anxiety-inducing, because you're not quite sure where you stand, you're not sure what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say, so you're just hyped and on your very best behavior, or at least trying to be, or at least that's me. I don't know, the rest of you might have other experiences. You were apprehensive. You didn't know what to expect from this dinner party. You didn't get too much time with your thoughts, though. The door opened soon enough. Cove's mom, Kyra, stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you.
Come on.
Hiya, Joy. Welcome. Please, come on in. She opened the door wider and moved to make room. You stepped inside, allowing her to shut it behind you. I'm trapped now. Thanks so much for coming over. I know it was kind of last second. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that. Well, as long as you have permission, I guess. Hey, Joy. Welcome to our humble abode. You jerked your head towards the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen. His back was turned and a large spoon in hand. He is very dark. Was he that dark before? Has he gotten more tan? Trying to think back. I do not remember. I feel like he was less tan at our first meeting. Anyway, hope you're hungry because I'm whipping up a lot of tasty stuff. True to his word, you heard something sizzling on the stove. You closed your eyes and inhaled. It smelled spicy and savory. Ooh. With Mr. Holden busy and Cove nowhere to be seen, it was just you and Kyra. She gave you a wry smile. He sure is. Well, I've been barred from cooking the entire time I'm staying here. Can you believe that? She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly, then spoke from over his shoulder. You're on vacation, Kyra. You need to accept that already. Aw, he's good to her, even if they're not together anymore. I wonder if we'll ever find out exactly what happened between these two. We'll see. She yelled back, amusement obvious on her face and in her tone. People still cook when they're on vacation. Everyone's gotta eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every meal or hire a private chef. Sorry. Well, in this house, you're a VIP. Aw. Kyra smiled and shook her head quietly, then she turned to face you once more.
Well.
Sorry about that, Joy. Here I was, trying to strike up a conversation with you, and Cliff just had to butt in. I don't butt in. She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disproving her point with that. Kyra leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay. He likes to be included. But since Clifford insisted on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. Her question continued to be said in a hushed tone, just to be safe. So, how are you doing? Oh, I'm good. That is a very me response. Kyra didn't seem too convinced by your awkward phrasing, but she nodded anyway. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. That is a weird way to phrase that. That is a very weird phrase. I'm sorry. Moving on. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hall a few moments later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. His cheeks tinted pink at the sight of you standing in his living room, and his hand came up to rub his arm almost bashfully. Aww. Joy, you made it. Thanks for coming. I'm sorry, I'm a sucker for blushing. Makes me happy. Cove. I'm exposing myself on the internet. This is a bad idea. Cove's voice was unnaturally loud, as if he thought you wouldn't be able to hear him from where you were, only a few feet away. Cove. Hey, weirdo. I love that response. Just vicious. Cove frowned at your playful greeting. Weirdo? Yeah, 'cause you're being all weird. Joy's just not letting him get away with anything. He huffed but didn't deny it, which meant that he knew he was acting off too. It was when you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrowed eyes.
So...
Are we having dinner now? Not yet, bud. I'm still cooking. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room. As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you. You coming? Yes, yes, yes! The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. You smiled, pleased that he asked, and nodded in the affirmative. Cove turned fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two. We'll call you when the food's ready to go. With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. I feel like after the incident where Cove snuck into our room and stayed the night, we would have become a heck of a lot closer, and so, like, we would both be over at each other's houses frequently and, you know, hanging out. So I'm gonna say going over to Cove's room was a standard occurrence for you nowadays. Cove got to the door first, opening it and stepping inside. You joined him. There was a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold into his room, you felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. Gross! Ew! No! 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 Sand does not belong in your living spaces! I'm actually very offended by this. The sensation was nothing new to you, of course. Cove constantly came back to his room covered in sand, not bothering to clean himself off at the front door, and got it all over his personal space. That is disgusting! Clean your shit up! That's just how he was. A little bit of a mess. At least he's a cute mess. You hadn't heard Mr. Holden ever scold him for it. Not like your moms would have if you'd done it. Mr. Holden's kinda... extremely lax, we'll say that. You can sit wherever you want. Cove himself took a seat at the edge of his large bed, looking like the picture of comfort, and left you to decide. You going for the bed? You sat next to Cove on his bed. As soon as you sat next to him, Cove grew tense. His back went stiff and he ducked his head away. Boy. I'm enjoying harassing this child. Do not take that out of context. He tried to hide a trembling smile. Aw, baby. Oh my god. Aw, baby. He said it under his breath as if he didn't want you to hear. You obviously did, and easily, since you were right beside him. Okay, young me would have been like, why is he freaking out? What the fuck? What's going on? So I'm gonna say, you were nervous about that. He raised his eyebrows. You both kept noticing the other's every move. Oh lord. Oh lord. I'm gonna be kinda bold and just be like, you're like an open book, you know that. I'm not. Why does this remind me of my wife? R2. Cove scowled before shifting nervously on the bed. He pointedly glanced away from you, the tips of his ears red. Aww. With the silence growing, your gaze began to drift. You stared at the bright fish swimming in the tank. There were a bunch of them floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. How long have you had those fish?
I guess.
My dad bought them for me not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now. Wow, that's a long time. You peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. You must take good care of them. I hope so. Pets are not toys. Pets are a responsibility. You get a pet, you take care of it. No ifs, ands, or buts. No room for discussion or debate. Pets deserve love and attention and care. That is, I'm getting off my soapbox now. Most of them were small, but there's one especially big one. What are their names? I don't name them. Excuse me. I don't name them. Well, not really. You lifted an eyebrow at that. He continued the explanation sheepishly.
I mean...
Mostly, I just call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for a small one, tangerine for a really orange one, that sort of thing. That's adorable. I've had a lot of fish, and I'm not that good at coming up with names. That's adorable! You found that funny. Who knew that was a weakness of his? It was an entertaining revelation. Oh, a couple of them have other types of names. He pointed to a small orangish red fish. It was minding its own business away from the others. My dad named her Dreamcatcher. And that one's Mark. Mom came up with that one. Cove smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish? I mean... The boy kinda sucks at naming things, so maybe it's for the best. Yeah, it's nice. He turned to you, tilting his head to the side. There was a considering look on his face. Do you want to name one? Fuck yes. Can I? His smile grew a little at your interest. Sure. There's a few who don't have names right now, the newer ones. You can pick which one you want to name. He pointed each of the recent acquisitions out to you. The first was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, running laps around the others. That's adorable. The second was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots, which almost resembled freckles. Also adorable. Excuse me. The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. Pretty. You went with... I'm going small fishy. Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting on you to decide a suitable name. You watched the fish you chose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. I'm gonna come up with my own name. No, his name is not Bubble. His name shall be... Speedy. Alright, it's Speedy. Yee! With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. He peered fondly at it He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. I do not know why I'm struggling so hard tonight. You smiled proudly at Speedy as it swam through the tendrils of the plants, disappearing then reappearing soon after. You noticed then that Cove was sitting closer to you than he was before. He must have scooted over at some point during the conversation. This close, your shoulders were almost brushing against each other. Your heartbeat picked up a little at the realization. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house, not even fish. Boo! No, every child deserves a dog, every child deserves a cat, every child deserves a fish. There must be pets. Except if you don't take care of them. Then no pets for you. Your pet license gets revoked the day you stop taking care of them. The corner of Cove's lips turned down at that. That doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make a mess of your house or anything. You just gotta take care of their tank and feed them, and they'll be okay. Right? My moms can be strict over the weirdest things sometimes. They trust Elizabeth and me to go around the neighborhood alone, but they won't let us have a pet? It doesn't make sense. Maybe when you're even older they'll let you? I don't know, they seem pretty against it. That sucks. I'm sorry, Joy. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. You launched into it without any warning, earning a brief, confused look from Cove. One time, Elizabeth came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. She only came down for food, and then she ran back upstairs, straight after. It was kind of weird. My moms didn't think much of it at first, though. But then at night, Mom went to her room to say goodnight and started screaming. Oh no. Oh no. Mom and I ran over to see what happened. Lizzie had this huge lizard in her arms. Ooh. I got a story time, but I'm gonna save that for later. Ask me about the lizard story. Cove's eyebrows rose at that, and he leaned forward in interest.
Really?
A lizard? Where'd that come from? Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Then she pulled it out and got the answer. She brought it home. Fair. She hid the lizard in room for most of the day because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Ma were not happy. They worried about putting it out during night, but she was going to have to let it go in the morning. I mean, it'd probably be fine. Lizzie was really upset. She did bring it back to the beach eventually, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. Then when she did get over it, it was almost like it never happened. Yeah, that's standard. You laugh, thinking back to that time. Elizabeth had always been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Yeah, that's how it be. Cove had been quiet for most of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling. Well, first of all, you fight over food, and space, and things. And, you know, just lots of fighting. Lots of fighting. But also, you love that little shit. And if anybody else fucks with them, you will fuck them up. That's what siblings are like. You gave serious thought to his statement before you told him, there are ups and downs. It's fun to have her there when she wants to be there, but now Elizabeth barely feels like hanging out with me. Yeah. Cove pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while.
Cool.
That's interesting. I think your family's cool. He didn't have much else to say, though while on the topic of your family, you considered your relationship with your moms too. We'll go with the neutral, you got along with your moms. You had disagreements with them, but at the end of the day, you loved them and they loved you. That was what really mattered. Well, say what you want about them, but at least your mom's never tried to pay someone to be your friend. Oh, are we broaching this subject? The thought prompted you to look over at Cove. He probably still didn't know that happened. Oh no. You doubted that Mr. Holden mentioned it, and you never had. You wondered if you should tell him. It was a long time ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. I hate this. I despise this. 'Cause personally, like, this would kill me. The weight of this would kill me. Honestly, just imagining trying to keep something like this from the wife for this long, I would be suffocating in guilt. Because she is someone I care about. And, like, Joey cares about Cove. Fuck. We're about to go to dinner with his parents. I don't want to piss him off right before dinner. But I don't want to keep it from him. Because I bet you anything the next opportunity I'm going to get to talk to him about this is going to be in the next phase of the story when they're teenagers. And that's a long ass time to keep a freaking secret. Oh my lord. Okay, I have to tell him. I can't put this off. It's gonna be so much worse if I put this off. Oh, he's gonna be so mad. Oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I don't want this. I don't want this. Damn it, Mr. Holden, why'd you have to bribe me? Okay. You decided to tell him. I'm still not ready. You took a deep breath. You took a deep, steadying breath to prepare yourself for the conversation. Now you just had to figure out how to tell him. Fuck. Please don't get mad about this, but...
What?
Cove's brow furrowed at your uncomfortable tone. He turned to give you his full attention. Shit. Fuck. Shit. About what? You stared into his bright ocean eyes. I don't want to, but I had to, because the longer you keep it, the worse it is. Okay, I can do this. I have to click the button. I'm not the one in this. Damn it! Cove's dad, why? You told him the truth. So, this was way back when you moved here, and the first time I met your dad, actually, your dad, he offered to give me $20 to be friends with you. Shit. Cove sat still. Uncharacteristically, there was an unreadable expression on his face. His eyes seemed to look through you, and you didn't know what to do next. Fuck! Then, without saying a word, Cove stood up from his bed in a single motion, and he just bolted right out of the room. Fuck, shit. Damn it. Fuck. Oh, this is not gonna end well. This is not gonna end well. Shit. For a moment, you didn't move a muscle. You were in shock. This was... oh no. Your senses quickly came back. You shot out into the hall after him. Cove! There was no response to your call. Fuck. You could see Cove down the way. Down the hallway? He had already sprinted back to the living room. His arms were stuck at his sides with his hands tightly balled into fists. I have just... oh, I hate this. I hate everything about this. He might not have been facing you, but you didn't need to see his face to know how he felt. Cove was furious. I am a terrible human being. I am a terrible human being. His parents were nearly finished setting the table. They greeted him, none the wiser of what was about to happen. Yes, I've just released a nuclear warhead into the kitchen.
Huh?
Hey, what's up? When did you start running in the house? Are you that famished? You were able to catch up and fool and stand near Cove. The parent's words didn't even register in his ears. The child was wholly focused on another matter. He was practically shaking. Cove took one more step forward and glared up at his father's face. This is not going to end well. You paid Joy to be friends with me? Mr. Holden froze. He looked like a helpless deer caught in the headlights.
Seriously?
Clifford? Are you serious? Shit. He whipped his head toward Kyra, his eyes wide and blinking rapidly. It was only one time! The admission elicited an aghast expression from his ex-wife. Mr. Holden raised his hands up to gesture defensively. It seemed like a good idea when it happened. She covered her eyes with one hand. It was clear that her patience was frayed, but she was not so shocked anymore. Mr. Holden bowed his head, rubbing the back of his neck guiltily. The fact that she accepted this as something he'd do so easily seemed to be the most crushing part. Cove just stood there, fuming silently during their little aside. His eyebrows furrowed painfully and his eyes trembled. You felt so bad for everybody. None of this was good at all. It was terrible. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but must have been only minutes, the tense silence was broken by Cove. I don't want to stay here. That immediately caught his parents' attention. They turned to him with twin expressions of worry. Hey, wait a minute, bud. You don't have to do that.
It's alright.
There's still your room. We'll stay out of your way, I promise. Where could you go at this time of day? It's almost night.
No!
I can stay with Joy. He stormed out of the house without waiting for another response. You jumped as the door slammed closed behind him. Go get him! You immediately followed after Cove. You didn't even take the time to say something to his stunned parents. You ran after Cove, shutting the door more softly behind you as you left. You spotted him easily. Cove hadn't made it far. He just reached the middle of the road. You followed quietly. You had already said enough. You walked a couple paces behind him, silent. Cove stomped forward, going across the street without hesitance towards your house. It didn't take long to approach the front door. You'd left it unlocked, so he yanked it open and went inside with you. I left... What? You don't frickin' leave the door unlocked! I don't care how safe your neighborhood is. By then, night fully came. The two of you stood tensely together in the middle of your living room. The night really hadn't gone as you imagined it would. Yeah. At least Elizabeth wasn't around, and your moms were out. You had no idea how you would have explained the situation to them, and you were sure Cove wouldn't have been up for that. He watched you from a distance. His expression wasn't hostile, but was not exactly welcoming either. Are you okay? Cove shifted so his back was to you, then he crossed his arms over his chest. Are you mad at me? To your surprise, he actually responded. What? No.
It's okay.
I wish I'd known before, but I guess there's never really a good time to bring up something like that. You're not the one who did anything. His tone was clipped and insulting, though it was now fully clear that none of the negativity was towards you. And we're actually friends, aren't we? It doesn't matter if you took it or not. You wouldn't pretend for years just because of Dad's money. You nodded your head furiously at that. There was one thing you didn't want this revelation to do. It was weaken your relationship. Of course we're friends. Cove seemed to appreciate your reassurance. The furrow in his brow eased a little. Yeah, we are. I'm definitely not mad at you. I should thank you for not letting him get to you, and for telling me it happened. My dad never would have. That is actually awful. He's always like that. He just does things. He doesn't ask or tell me about it or anything. Somehow I feel like that's probably why he's divorced. Cove threw his arms out, his features twisted in frustration. There already was the thing with my mom coming to stay with us for the summer out of nowhere, and that was supposed to be a surprise I'd find out about. Who knows what other things he's done that I've never heard of? Does he even know how to think about what someone else might actually want? He paused to take a panting breath, scowling. He continued to listen quietly. Uninterrupted by you, Cove went on with his spiel. The worst part is, I know he doesn't do stuff for himself. He does things because he wants to make people happy. Aww. Cove blinked rapidly, and you noticed tears were gathering in his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with emotion. But he just makes everything worse, and then he's really sorry, and it's like it's your fault for not being happy that he was at least trying. And what if all his plans and always being so pushy did change things? What things? Cove finally met your gaze, his bottom lip trembling. You realized then that he was referring to you and him. What if what he did made you stay away from me before we even got to know each other? His voice cracked as he forced himself to speak through the tears that began to fall in earnest. He did everything he could to say it, but the words were barely a whisper.
Joy.
You were the best thing about coming here. Shit. Cove was honestly terrified over the idea that there was a chance the two of you might not have what you do. You hugged him. Cove readily accepted the embrace. He wrapped his arms around you in return. The grip was firm. You didn't need to say anything. You continued to stand by him, and that was enough. More tears threatened to fall down his cheek, but he stubbornly blinked them away. You remained like that for just a little while. Then he scrubbed his eyes with the back of one hand. His gaze turned away from you, growing distant. It's like that with my mom, too. The anger he had begun to release bubbled back to the surface. Dad wants to make people happy, but he doesn't. The words landed scathingly hard. You were certain it'd crush Mr. Holden if he heard them. You'd never known much about his parents' relationship, but you thought you understood it a bit better now. I'm here for you. Cove just looked at the ground. As the two of you were stifled by the quiet, a thought came to your mind, abrupt and sudden. I remember that day, when it happened. You ran to the hills behind the house, and Mr. Holden waited for you to come back while my mom's checked the park for you. That was when I met you for the first time, after he talked to me about you. Cove lifted his eyes just enough to see you. His head remained low. I remember too, when we first moved to Sunset Bird, I felt like I lost my whole life. Maybe that's why he wanted to help you start a life here so much. His eyebrows scrunched up, and he seemed on the verge of tears once more. It was obvious Cove didn't want to think about his dad that way, but it was also hard not to right now. He must be conflicted over where to go from here. I'll be on your side no matter what you do about your dad. Cove smiled thoughtfully. He didn't say anything, but you had a feeling he appreciated the support. I'm going back home. His His face was set in determination. There was no way you could tell him to do anything else, even if you wanted to, so you only nodded.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, Joy. I'm sorry about all this. Can I come with you? Yeah, why wouldn't you go? He smiled lightly. Aw. Just checking. Cove nodded and headed outside. You followed behind him. Once again, the two of you made your way across the street towards his house. He didn't pause at the door, he just opened it wide and went in. Cove's parents were sitting at the table, their heads bowed in silence between them. They snapped over at the sound of the door, relieved to see Cove return. Mr. Holden stood up so suddenly his chair squeaked across the floor.
Cove?
Kyra got out of her chair as well, but less dramatically. How are you feeling, baby? I wanted to talk to you. His parents looked over him, their features soft. Cove instead snuck a glance at you. You were glad you could be there for him. You stared back solidly, hoping you could convey your support with your eyes. It must have worked because Cove stood up a bit straighter. Cove then fully faced his parents. Mr. Holden stepped forward cautiously, his expression twisting in dismay. I'm so sorry. I should never have done something so stupid. It's okay. It really isn't. That was a boneheaded move if ever there was one. I was bribing an actual child, one I never even met before that day. Cove almost cracked a smile, though he quickly regained his composure. Then it isn't, but I want things to be okay anyway.
I'm sorry.
Kyra placed a hand on Mr. Holden's shoulder. Your dad doesn't believe there's something wrong with you or that you can't make your own friends. He can explain.
I know.
I know why Dad did it. He wanted me to be happy, that's all. He didn't think it'd be like this. It was an accident. Kyra sighed heavily. A sad smile appeared on her lips. You're very grown up, Cove. Mr. Holden brought his hands up against his forehead and began to pace around the room. He didn't seem to know what to do with himself. He turned back to face Cove and Kyra. He looked more solemn than you'd ever seen him. I'm not going to do it again. I haven't done it again. Haven't tried to bribe more people or haven't continued to step over a line without registering it. Both! He let out a heavy sigh before shrinking down a little. It was impressive because he was pretty tall.
I'm trying.
I don't know, but I don't think so. Cove's throat bobbed as he swallowed thickly. He looked like he was trying to gather all his courage. When he spoke up, his voice was small but firm. You invited Mom here. His dad's eyes widened. Cove was ready to have a talk he had put off before. You didn't ask me if I wanted things to be like this, with both of you together again for just a little while. Mr. Holden's hand slowly returned to his forehead. He was stunned, as if someone had just hit him. I did it again. And I didn't even notice. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just do something right? At least Cove seemed relieved that he was able to say what he felt. You knew just how long he'd been holding that in. It was quiet for a long stretch. Mr. Holden had sat down in the chair, his shoulders drooped and his head in his hands. You looked to Cove. He watched his dad and how genuinely he was struggling with what he'd been told. Cove glanced down at the ground, then looked back to his dad. I'm not angry anymore. Slowly, Mr. Holden met his son's eyes. I can try to talk to you about things and what I feel about stuff. I stopped saying that to you since everything happened. I didn't want to talk to you, but user error. I didn't want to talk to you, but you won't have to guess if you know. Mr. Holden broke eye contact at that, shaking his head.
God.
My child shouldn't have to take care of me. You shouldn't have to make up for my shortcomings, Cove. I can fix things. I can still change. After having something of an outburst, Mr. Holden turned his face away and spoke more guardedly. Besides, I'm used to that already. I might not get it right, but not a damn thing would happen in what's left of this family if I wasn't making the effort. It's always me. What's one more thing to manage? Ooh. Dad.
I see.
You're right, Cliff. I know. But I don't think Cove wants to take care of you. He just wants to understand. And he wants his dad to understand, too. That's what matters, isn't it? It was still as Mr. Holden digested what Kyra said. He stared down at his empty hands, held out in front of him. When he looked at Cove again, tiny tears glimmered in the corners of his eyes. He got up and crossed the room to his son. Cove didn't move or look away as he approached. Mr. Holden set his hands on Cove's shoulders, the touch firm. He furrowed his brows. Bud, you and I are going to talk about every single thought that ever pops into our heads. Oh boy. For the rest of your life. He shook Cove forward and back a bit. Tears slipped down Cove's cheeks, but he was smiling.
What?
No, I don't want that. Mr. Holden began to smile too. It trembled at the corners, but it was genuine. I'm afraid it's the only way. Kyra chuckled even as she blinked away her own tears. Mr. Holden turned towards her. You better not be thinking you can get away from this, Kyra. The same is gonna apply to you. You can't! He let go of Cove with one hand while he placed his other arm around Cove's shoulders. Then he faced Kyra.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, I can. He continued to talk as he walked in her direction, bringing Cove along with him. That's cute. I like this. Then father and son were standing in front of her. Mr. Holden put his other arm around her. Now he had both of them in his arms. If you think the ideas that I actually go with are bad, you two are going to be amazed by the thoughts I decide against all on my own. Oh boy. Kyra jokingly cringed at the concept. Cove smiled tearfully up at his parents. Thanks, Dad.
I'm so glad.
Thank you, son. But hey, you know what I'm thinking now? Cove, wiping his face with the back of his hand, shook his head. God, no, you're an incomprehensible maniac! Mr. Holden laughed, not disputing her words. I'm thinking we should eat dinner... I'm thinking we should eat that dinner I painstakingly made. It's salvageable, just gotta heat it back up. Kyra sighed in exaggerated relief.
Can do.
That we can manage, right, Cove? Yeah. Great, we're making progress already.
Well...
Though, I don't even know how I'm going to start making this up to Joy. Carrying that secret for all this time must have been quite the burden to bear. Plus, they didn't actually get any money out of that deal. They didn't take them for 20. I'm sure he'll come up with something. Well, we will work on it. Okay. Cove ducked his head and spoke towards you. There was a tiny smile on his face. Do you want to stay for dinner still? You bet. I was promised a meal. Mr. Holden finally let go of his family. Kyra patted him on the back with a content smile. You're very good boys. I'm so lucky. Cove shyly rubbed his arm, while Mr. Holden nervously rubbed his neck. Neither could make eye contact out of bashfulness. In that moment, they really did seem like father and son. That's adorable! Cove's family was nice, you thought to yourself. You were glad that you got to come over. I was hoping for something light, and it was heavy! But at least it finished off pretty positive, we'll say. And I finally got that secret off my chest! It doesn't have to haunt me for the rest of my days! You know, I wonder if you could legitimately go through this entire game and just never tell him about it. I need to play this game again. I need to replay this after I finish this. There are literally endless possibilities. I need to know. Anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. Or at least close to as much as I am, because I'm into this. This is my shit. Anyway, next time we will tackle Road Trip, and we will finally finish the summer! Woo! Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again in 2 weeks.